Dear Playbills, welcome to the podcast that Gerard Butler, George Washington, and Winona Ryder all don't want you to hear. It's Monkeys and Playbills, y'all!
That's my dream fuck, marry, kill lineup.
Ooh, yes.
Okay, go.
Fuck George Washington, but only once.
But like middle finger. Oh, no.
Only
Sorry.
once. Well, yes.
Like, fuck him.
Yeah, fuck him.
Yeah, terrible person and also just riddled with disease, old-timey diseases,
Yeah.
probably.
Wooden teeth, too. Yeah.
Wooden teeth.
Look at us.
I'd marry Winona Ryder because she just seems like everybody's favorite wine aunt.
Oh, that's exactly it.
And I'll kill Gerard Butler because somebody has to.
Jill, how about you?
Oh, please don't make me do that.
Gerard Butler, George Washington,
Yeah.
and
I
Winona
actually
Ryder.
tend to agree with Daph.
Yeah, you think that's
Great.
a good,
Yeah.
I would marry Winona Ryder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because out of those three, she seems the one who's kind of actually got her life on track a little bit,
Yeah.
you know?
Which is so funny to say, but yes.
And then,
You're absolutely right.
yeah, fuck George Washington, because fuck George Washington, and kill Gerard Butler because, well, we'll find out this episode.
Great. All right, y'all. Who are we and what are we doing here?
Oh, thank you, producer Daph. Please, welcome to Monkeys and Playbills, the podcast where we talk about Broadway shows that had runs of 100 performances or fewer on Broadway.
And what the heck happened?
And today we're not talking about any of that.
Mm-mm.
We're talking instead about 3 shows that recently posted closing on Broadway and what the heck happened.
Yeah. So it's been a really wild January so far because we've seen or will see by the end of the month, I think it was 11 Broadway shows closing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you look at our group chat right now, it's just like, so-and-so is closing. This is also closing.
Yep.
Wow. Like, our list is getting added to at an exponential rate.
Well, it's also been fascinating to having started this podcast in deep pandemic when there was no shows up to figure out what the relationship is to this podcast with current Broadway, with Broadway that's
Exactly.
running right now and not just Broadway in the history books. Has been really
Yes.
interesting.
And we know historically that January is the quieter month.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
nobody's touring to New York. No,
Yeah.
like, everyone's already done their holiday vacation.
If you're a show, maybe you've made your holiday, you held on through after the holidays to make your
Yep.
holiday chunk of change, and now's a nice quiet time to pack up shop before the
Yeah.
spring rush.
So today we're going to explore 3 productions
Yep.
that have posted closing recently.
And
Or
they're all-
have closed recently, I guess. We have a bit of a
Yes.
combo pack.
And they're all fascinating for different reasons, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing yours first, right, Jill? We're going to talk about the longest running show in Broadway history.
Oh my God.
We're going to talk about a revival of a show had a limited run. So the excitement is not why it closed, it's what happened while it was open. And we're going to talk about a show that closed and then reopened.
Yeah, the
And it's
show
closed again.
deals with the topic of life and death and resurrection, and it itself was resurrected from the brink of death. So I think that's fun in a meta kind of way.
For those of you who don't have those facts off the top of your head, we're going to talk about Phantom of the Opera, the revival of the musical 1776, and the musical adaptation of the movie Beetlejuice.
Who?
Beetlejuice.
No, don't. You don't.
Whoops,
you.
my bad. That was close.
It's showtime.
Well, now we have to start.
We should acknowledge before we do that this season of Monkeys and Playbills is produced through the generous support of the Canada Council for the Arts and in collaboration with the Crescent Arts Centre.
Thank you, Daddy, Canada Council.
I was just going to say thank you, Daddy. Yeah. But also, please check out some of the other Village Conservatory podcasts. We've got It Takes Two, a mentorship podcast, and we also have an upcoming narrative podcast,
Yeah.
Tales from the Great Transfiguration.
Tales of the Great Transfiguration. So close.
I was so close. You can leave that in. I want people to know I'm human.
Jill, you did an episode of the mentorship podcast with Sam Hutchings, a dear friend of all ours, dear friend of the show, incredible performer.
The best.
And it was really fucking cool. And you made a video about like Broadway dance through the
It was
ages.
really
And it
cool.
rules. It's
Yeah.
really cool. I would highly recommend everyone check out that episode of It Takes Two. Then check all the rest of them
I
out
was gonna
after you like that
say,
one.
There's
Yeah.
some amazing stuff that came out of the what I, thought was a pretty like concise amount of time, like a very short period of mentorship, and the stuff that people created, it was pretty fantastic to see. So check it out. So before we begin, we should let you know that obviously the format is slightly different today. This sort of mirrors more of our mini-sode sort of formatting where we
Yeah.
each look into a different one to give you sort of an overview of different musicals.
Absolutely.
So We've each researched one of those, and I had the honor and pleasure of researching the longest running Broadway show, The Phantom of the Opera. So in our group chat, before assigning these shows, it sort of came up that Paul doesn't like the show.
I do not like the show Phantom of the Opera.
I don't like the show.
Jill does not like the show Phantom of the Opera.
And then we assumed that meant that Daphne also didn't. For whatever reason, we were like, well, there couldn't possibly be a third person.
There we go. We have
who-
consensus. Yeah.
And
No
then-
one likes the show Phantom of the Opera.
Just I piped up in my little text voice. I like it. It's got some flaws, but I overall like
And
it.
you know what? As I researched and was reminded of those experiences seeing the show, I was enchanted myself. So I might retract that like strong, the way I came off so strong initially, but we can all acknowledge the what do you call that? The thorns and I don't know. I was gonna.
Roses and thorns.
Yeah, the roses and thorns or whatever of this
Absolutely.
specific production.
Yeah.
Because I had a not dissimilar experience. I've never liked it. I've known it for a long time. It was one of the first musicals I got into. My partner Allie was super hyper focused on it when we got together when we were kids, when we were 14. So that means that I kind of got into it as well. But I've never I only liked it a few years ago when I saw the Royal Albert Hall concert with Ramin and
Yes.
Sierra.
Oh, the 25th
and
anniversary
it's-
concert.
For the first time, I was like, "Oh, that's why this is good." Oh, I see. Yeah, nope. I can see how this is good, and parts of this are really good.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it exactly. So what was your first experience with the show?
I think it might have been the movie. I think it might have been the Gerard
Oh,
Butler
no.
and Emmy
Yeah.
Rosa movie, the Joel Schumacher movie. Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay. I'm sorry.
Which also started my lifelong crush on Emmy Rossum. Fun
Oh
fact.
yeah, that I understand.
Yeah.
I super understand that actually.
And a lifelong distaste for Gerard Butler.
Yeah, what's he doing there?
Oh my gosh.
You are kind of unappealing.
Okay, so we have two folks who came at it from movie first.
Yeah, and what
Yeah.
about you?
I remember my dad owning the CD. And I remember that like iconic organ intro,
Yes.
right? And also when I told David today that we were going to be talking about it, he sang that. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously that. And then there was a touring production that came here in 2005.
I saw that tour.
And I saw that.
Yeah.
And I saw it before I had seen the movie, which had come out the year before,
Yeah.
I guess. And so my first experience with it, and I'm glad it was the spectacle of the thing.
That was a nice
Yeah.
tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, lots of different perspectives.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. So, The Phantom of the Opera. Previews began at the Majestic Theatre on January 9th, 1988. It opened on January 29th, 1988, and it is closing on April 16th, 2023, after 16 previews and 13,877 performances.
Just squeaking past our mandate there with a smart 13,000.
One that just barely got away. Yeah.
Nice to see an underdog make good.
My entire life, it has been on Broadway.
Do we have any idea how many of the original people, if there was anyone originally left there, or was it like a Boat of Theseus thing where by the time it had closed, like there was no one who was there when it opened?
I know there were a lot of the musicians that have been on.
This is what I was going to bring up. There's a few
since, like, day
musicians who,
one. Yeah.
there's like a violinist especially who's done a couple of interviews,
Yeah.
who had that chair since it opened.
That's
oh
really
my
cool.
gosh, that's
Very
so
cool.
incredible.
Yeah.
I would guess that Andrew Lloyd Webber and those musicians are the only ones who survived the run.
Whether Andrew Lloyd Webber survived or not remains
TBD.
is up for debate.
There was an actor who was in it for 20 years.
Wow.
Oh, that's incredible.
Other than that, I know there's a lot of like
Maybe some crew members or stage
Yeah.
managers. It would be
folks
hard.
affiliated with the theater
I could see it
specifically.
being hard to keep on performing for that long. It'd just be hard on your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
That rocks. There is, for
Yeah.
any way
Yeah.
I feel about Phantom as a piece, the opportunity to live on a show for your whole career,
Yes.
to live in one place and to have a guaranteed
yeah.
income as a performer, as a musical theater performer.
Incredible.
That's like I take it in a second.
Yeah.
And I love it.
You know what you're getting into.
Yep.
It's also like what we talked about before is like if your show is going to appeal to Bev from Idaho, you got to check your paycheck is cash for the next 20 years.
Right.
Bev from Idaho is going to go. She's going to get wine drunk with her friend Shirley. They're going to have a great time.
And maybe buy a t-shirt or a tote bag.
Or perhaps a button.
Yes.
A t-shirt, that t-shirt with just the mask, on it.
Iconic.
Incredible. The late 80s Mega Musical boom was so good for graphic design.
Yeah.
So it's funny you would mention that because in terms of the imagery that we associate with musical theater and my early childhood is the Les Mis logo, because for whatever reason my aunt had a poster of it in her basement and it stuck out to me.
Supposed to look like Little Cosette.
That's it.
Cosette just like staring off while her hair is blowing in one direction.
And like the flag is behind perhaps.
Yeah.
And then the Phantom Mask.
Yeah.
And maybe the eyes from Cats.
Yeah, those are the three.
Right? Yeah.
And then Miss Saigon didn't really have one that caught it. Because those are like the 4 mega musicals.
Totally.
From the initial boom. I guess Miss Saigon had a cool logo and like it's
like the sunset,
the
right?
sunset.
Okay, so for those of you who may not know the synopsis of this play, it's about a guy who lives in a theater and teaches. He's like a voice teacher, so he teaches singing lessons at the theater, but in a very mysterious way.
Yeah.
And
more pitchy.
And he like kind of like
More breath.
and then his like prodigy Christine becomes famous on this operatic stage. And then there's a side love interest, and then the man in the mask gets like kind of jealous.
Can I just go back on the fact that you described the Phantom as a guy who teaches singing at the opera house, but
Am I wrong?
mysteriously?
Are we wrong? That's what he does.
I don't know. I thought
You're not wrong.
I thought it
but
was
It leaves
accurate.
out a few really key parts.
Oh, well, he's also blackmailing the owners of the opera for 20,000 francs a month.
right.
He also lives under the theater and no one knows whether he actually exists or not.
And also
Right.
he's a horse in the sewer. What's that horse doing down
And also
there?
he always wears a mask.
Interesting.
Sorry,
Yeah.
to
No.
interrupt. That was just so funny.
No, I was trying to be really like bare bones about it because I figure that if anyone really wants to know, they can watch a version or whatever.
Yeah.
But
It's about a grumpy vocal coach.
Yeah. Paul, he's you in 20 years.
He absolutely is.
Just hiding out in the walls.
how many times can he say the same thing?
Hey, that's my bike.
Okay, we're going to speak, and then we're going to shout on that pitch, then we're going to sing on that same pitch.
Oh my God, how many times can he work on that belt?
Absolutely, exactly.
So, and then there's also a sequel, which I don't want to get too into, but I
Yeah.
think it's funny because to me they are linked
They have to
because
be, yeah.
because then so Christine and Raoul end up getting together. That's
Yep.
the side love story. And then they move to Coney Island. And the Phantom follows them to Coney Island.
Yep.
That is Love Never Dies. So if you're looking for just a total trip, you should listen to that too.
Yeah.
And Love Never Dies is still up?
No.
No.
No, I don't
But
think
they
it
did
ran
film
for
it.
very long. Oh, they might have.
think
yeah.
they filmed it.
You might be
Yeah.
right. Yeah, they captured.
And it's never been in the U.S. This was all in Europe
Yes.
that it had its development and its premiere.
Yeah. So in terms of the history of Phantom, so it opened in the West End in 86. And then a couple years later, they brought it to Broadway. And if I'm not mistaken, Jim Steinman was originally asked to do the lyrics.
That makes sense.
But he was like busy or tired or something. So
Jim Steinman of Meatloaf.
Steinem, thank you.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Yes. No, you're exactly right.
Meatloaf and Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Yep.
I Need a Hero.
Yeah.
All coming back to me now.
That makes very good
Oh,
sense.
it's a
for the show.
perfect
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah, that makes
there's
so
no
much
question.
sense.
Yeah, but I think he like did Starlight Express or something. Or I don't know, there was a reason that he was like busy or tired. Probably both. So it ended up being, I'll give you the stats, the list here. So it was produced by Cameron McIntosh, which we know automatically means spectacle, means big budget. Music by Andrew Lloyd Webber, lyrics by Charles Hart. So that's who ended up writing the lyrics.
Yeah.
From the novel Le Fantôme de l'Opéra by Gaston Leroux. No one writes like Gaston. And then additional lyrics by Richard Stilgoe. And then the book was by Richard Stilgoe and Andrew Lloyd Webber. And then the music was orchestrated by David Cullen and Andrew Lloyd Webber. So those are the peeps.
Andrew Lloyd Webber at this point is at his, I would say at his peak, is at his artistic peak. is the argument I would make.
I would
with these.
absolutely agree with that.
He's done, this is post Jesus Christ Superstar, Dreamcoat, but that's not, Dreamcoat hasn't been a thing yet.
Evita.
This is post Evita.
Yeah.
And there's one, and like Song and Dance.
Jellicle, songs for
This
Jellicle
is post
Cats.
Cats.
Yep.
Wow.
Right? Like, not that far behind.
No, you're totally right.
But
Yep.
if you think about, so late 70s was Jesus Christ Superstar. And this is late 80s. And you've got 6 shows open.
He's like the Stephen King of musicals.
That's exactly it.
He's just banging them out while everyone else is like, I've been working on this for 12 years.
Yeah.
The point of it is, especially after this, before this, he has written all his great works, all his great songs, virtually, if not totally.
I would argue that after Jesus Christ Superstar, like that was, to me, the greatest.
At 100%, I agree.
And so every subsequent show I just giggle about.
Yes.
But I've never written a show, so I can't.
But,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would also argue
huge
that there's
endeavor.
moments of brilliance after that. Because you
Yes.
got, like, he writes Don't Cry For Me, Argentina.
True.
He writes Tell Me on a Sunday. There's songs and cats that are really beautiful.
Which ones, Paul?
The Rum Tum Tugger. My favorite
Or
cat.
Mr. Mistopheles. Oh, that one's so good. It's just the same.
Wow, I never. That's what I said when I was watching that show.
I like that one where they sing about being cats.
Was there
and
ever
then
a
they
cat so
describe
clever?
what it means
That's
to be
it.
a cat. And it's a lot of things that don't make sense.
That's it.
That's
it.
That's
I like
really
cats probably 300% more than I like Phantom of the Opera.
Interesting take.
But I also, I'm a sucker for cats.
Right.
At least because I like that cats is like pastiche in style.
yeah.
And so there's a lot of styles I key into more. I'm not an opera guy. So
Right,
any of the
right.
pastiche stuff in Phantom that's opera is automatically like something that's going to be a struggle for me.
Yeah, okay, I can understand that.
Anyway, I keep on derailing you.
No,
while you're
it's
talking.
okay. So, all this to say, the West End production opened in 86 and it ran until the pandemic. In July of 2020, there was like this really dramatic video of the theater getting loaded out. Her Majesty's Theatre in London. So they were loading out the theater and there was this video with Andrew Lloyd Webber like standing on the stage being like, don't worry, we're just gonna like do a revamp or something
taking
and
this
we'll be
time
back.
to change things around. Yeah.
Right.
And then a couple weeks later they actually said, okay, we're not gonna bring it back.
Right.
We're closed. But then about a year later, I think they announced that they were gonna reopen, but it was like a new design.
Yep.
Okay.
And a reduced orchestration.
Yes. Okay. Which is a big thing
Which is a
because
big
I think
thing, yeah.
some of the talks surrounding the closing were that they were talking about the sheer size of this orchestra because it's
Yeah.
27 pieces in the West End, 29 on Broadway. That's amazing. And I'm like, you
Yes.
never get to hear that.
There is like a handful of theaters in the world right now that are employing those size of orchestras. That's incredible.
But at the time, it was like, okay, let's pack 27 people in a closed space, some of whom
Yes.
are shooting spit.
Totally.
In aerosol fashion.
and
That's
it'll all
it.
be okay because we're making money hand over fist.
Yes.
Yeah, and we want a big old operatic sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't think they ever confirmed nor denied that that was something, but I think, of course, people talk and figure it out. And so they've reopened 2021?
With the big Broadway reopening, I thought.
So that's kind of what happened in the West End. And then, of course, they like have done a lot of tours of it. And those people that were on the tour that had to close ended up getting picked up for the West End production. So there is a bit of that cross-pollination.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and use of different people. But that means after 2 years of it being open in the West End, they were like, let's take it to Broadway. And we've talked about shows that have tried and failed.
A lot. Yeah.
Well, obviously that didn't happen
Nope.
Yeah.
in this circumstance because everybody's favorite lady from Idaho, I don't know,
Bev.
thank you, would come to see it because it's spectacular,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, right?
My dad loves Phantom of the Opera. My dad's not a musical guy, although he loves a surprising amount of musicals for someone who's not a musical guy.
I love people like that.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I'm just not into musicals, except, and then they list 45 musicals.
Yeah, and it looks like the most musical musicals. Like, I consider fandom to be like a musical.
Yes.
Like, when you say you don't like musicals, you're either including this as your prototypical I don't like musicals,
Yep.
or you are using this as your exception to why you don't like musicals. There's no in
Yes.
between.
So
Absolutely.
like before I was born, my parents took my niece to see a tour in like Saskatoon in the 80s, in the late
Wow.
80s, early 90s. Maybe
Yeah.
I was just born. And my dad still talks about it.
Yeah.
Cannot stop talking about how affected he was by Phantom, about and then he yells and she sings. She sings so high. And he goes, "Sing for me."
Yeah, Carl, that's the show.
35 years later, he is still just like keyed in on this. It's awesome. It's great.
So funny.
Yeah, and like my mom is Bev from Idaho, and I say this with love because like we went to go see it at the Centennial Concert Hall in 2019, I want to say.
The second tour that came
when it came through here, and like my mom was buying merch. My mom was having a lovely time. We were geeking out about the chandelier. We were having a grand old time.
Yeah.
This show is in the life
Yeah.
of anyone who loves musical theater in
Absolutely.
some way. Like this is friggin' listeners, send in your Phantom experience. I guarantee everyone listening to this show
everyone
has one.
And also it's another musical that I think everyone has a take on.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you don't have no opinions on Phantom.
Yes, that's it.
It's almost wild that it's not going to be on Broadway. It feels weird once again because we've never known a Broadway without it.
Now that we're on that,
Yeah.
so obviously we know it's closing because we're talking about it. It was supposed to close this month, but as is wont to happen with these shows, when you post your closing, people start flocking to it. And they're like, wait a second.
We can extend.
Let's extend.
Right.
So now they're set to close in April.
Are they actually going to close?
Well, okay.
Was this a publicity stunt?
Well,
Like,
okay. I understand wanting to drum up support for your show.
100%.
And we know that being honest and saying, hey, where are our audiences? Why aren't you coming out to see the show? Isn't actually always like that kind of plea doesn't work.
No one likes to be guilted into seeing
Exactly.
it.
No one's going to come just because you made them feel bad.
It also feels a little bit tactless, especially nowadays with like, you know, the fact A, Broadway is so expensive.
Yes.
B, everything is so expensive. And C, I have to get to Broadway physically in order to see your show.
Which
That's
is
it.
has always been expensive and is now even more
Yeah,
so.
so it's one of those things where it just feels a little bit tactless to be like, where are all our people giving us more money?
Yes. And so they obviously didn't do that, which I think is good. And I mean, some circumstances, maybe it's necessary to do that. There were a couple shows this year that I think closed very abruptly. And I mean, I'm sure we'll discuss them, but they needed maybe a bit more of support in that way. But Phantom, when you're like, okay, you're an institution. If people aren't coming, it's because maybe it's time. Like maybe
you've been running
this
for
is a sign.
30 years. I think you're good.
Yeah.
Like maybe everyone who's wants to see Phantom has seen Phantom now.
Right.
And like you can do a victory lap for like the people who love Phantom more than life itself to see it one or two more times.
Exactly.
But like, yeah.
So maybe this is the second wind, if you will.
Like this is that victory lap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the encore. This is the encore.
This is the encore.
Yeah, that's right. Let's actually use a music, a theater
Carl.
term rather than a sports term.
I'm done with sports. This is the encore.
Yes.
So I don't know if it was conscious.
Yeah.
That they were like, ooh, let's like post closing and then run a little longer. Like it was probably a happy circumstance, a happy accident, if you will. And an opportunity to get those people to come to say goodbye in a way that didn't feel so like shocking.
And it's kind of nice at this point. They get to rehire all their staff and give them a full year.
Yes.
A full year salary, which is
that's so
kind of
true.
a cool thing to say goodbye to people who have given a lot to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to do some sort of like in memoriam for it at the Tonys this year.
Oh, I guarantee.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts? Like, I feel like we agree on how this all went down.
I think that for a show that's been running for 30 years, I think you can just call it a day and make room for some new blood on Broadway.
Yes.
I think so. I think at the very least it's time to shut it down, respectfully, like shut down Hal Prince's concept.
Yeah.
I'm sure within 10 years we'll see a revival with a new design and a new
I
concept.
think so, too.
Like this will not be the last we see of Phantom. This might be the last we see of that chandelier falling. You know
Which I
what I
think
mean?
is also even more of a reason for it to close because, like, we know it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We know that if any theater programs Phantom in their season, they're going to be, like, sold out every single night.
Yes. Before we wrap this up, I do have a couple of fun facts.
Great.
Fun
So-
fact corner.
Well, I guess this one's not so much a fun fact because we've talked a little bit about this Tony year before.
Okay.
But this is the biggest, well, I would maybe argue the second biggest upset in Tony history because there was that year with Dreamgirls and 9. So that was a big year.
Yeah, no, this is a bigger upset than that, though.
You think so?
I think so. This is Into the Woods and Phantom, right?
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing that I noticed about that Tony year, 1988, was that Phantom seemed to win the design categories.
Sure.
And then Into the Woods won like score, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the material ones, like the show ones.
I don't want to
makes
say
sense.
how do they refer to it at the
Yeah.
Oscars again? It's production versus
Production design and then like
like they
performances.
they
Right.
categorize these into
Yeah.
categories, and it's not the language isn't quite right.
the technical awards.
The technical
Right.
awards
Yeah.
versus the art, and I don't like that
Yes.
because that implies that the technical awards are not artistic.
I
but
know.
Nevertheless,
Yeah, but in terms of even just
Phantom took the technicals.
it
and
did.
Into the Woods took the artistics, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. So like Phantom ended up winning. So they were both nominated for 10 Tony Awards. So completely even in that regard. And I think probably all the same categories. Joanna Gleason won for The Baker's Wife, but then Michael Crawford won for Phantom. So
Yeah.
Or was that the year that Chip Zine? Is that the
think
version that
so.
Chip Zine was the baker?
yeah,
Chip
it
Zine?
was.
Who's absurd as the baker, is like the definitive baker.
Oh yeah, I agree.
But also Michael Crawford is he's
The
got a cool
definitive
voice,
Phantom,
man.
really.
What a cool voice.
Yeah. And then Phantom won Best Musical, but Into the Woods took Best Score.
That's wild.
And also Best Book. I think Into the Woods took Best Book.
As well it should. It would be absurd otherwise.
Oh, I know.
I got Into the Woods. I just saw the MTZ production of Into the Woods, and it reminded me what a beautiful show that is, what a beautiful script it has, what a beautiful book it has.
Yep.
It's a beautiful show.
It truly is.
You can't actually argue that Phantom's better than Into the Woods.
But then it's like, to see it laid out in that way, it kind of made sense to me finally, where I was like, oh, yeah, that is what's appealing about Phantom.
Yeah.
Is the chandelier, is the costume, the set, like,
yeah.
you know, those beautiful,
Is the
even the
third-
direction, like very
Absolutely.
sweeping and lovely.
The orchestration is really exciting about Phantom.
Yeah,
I don't
true.
love the score, but the orchestration is also sweeping and lovely.
Yes.
This enormous. And then it's also got like 80s rock stuff, which is
Yeah,
really
it does.
fun.
Oh man, like sitting in the Centennial Concert Hall having that like synthesizer going on, I was like, what year is this?
But it's amazing.
It's so
love
good.
it.
Oh, it's so good. But yeah, no, it was interesting to revisit that Tony year and to see it like that.
That's a wild Tony year. That's so fascinating.
So Phantom won 7, Into the Woods won 3.
That's really hard to swallow.
Yeah. My last fun fact is that, so I was looking up on IBDB, which is an excellent page that has all the information you could ever want and all the names of folks who contributed to each production. So have a look when you can.
We want to talk about an unofficial sponsor of this show, IBDB.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big time. So I was scrolling through the original company members
Yes.
for the show, and I came across a name that was very familiar to me.
Is it in the music department?
In the ballet ensemble.
Oh, okay.
I won't make you guess because you never
No.
will. But Nicole Fosse, daughter of Gwen Verdon and Bob Fosse,
No.
was in the original
That's
ballet
amazing.
ensemble of the OG Phantom on Broadway.
That's wild.
And it's her only like Broadway credit, I think. Other than I think she might have produced a
That's
couple
her
things,
only Broadway
but her only
credit.
performance credit. Yep.
Oh, talk about Nepo babies.
Nepo baby.
I what I thought you were going to say, although I don't know if you know him, my mentor and friend Jeffrey Heward, who taught me how to conduct basically as an incredible music director, was the original associate.
Wonderful.
On Phantom. So he was
Wow.
playing one of the keyboard books in the pit opening night, and
Incredible.
has some incredible stories.
But many a Phantom connection, I think, over the 34. Sorry, I was doing math. 35. It'll be 35 years. I think that's all we need to talk about with Phantom.
great.
There's probably
Yeah.
more than we needed to talk about, but it was good to
Hey.
have a chance to discuss it because we never would have
We
otherwise.
didn't even get into the Sarah Brightman of it all,
Oh God,
which is probably a good
Snooze
thing.
fest.
Yeah.
Sorry, wow.
Like actually though, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's rude.
No, that's a fact.
I just find her to not be as dynamic as some of the other.
Oh, she's not
performers we've
dynamic.
seen.
It's almost fascinating to look at her career trajectory as it relates to Andrew Lloyd Webber wanting to bone her.
yes.
You know?
They got married, right?
Oh yeah, they got
They were like
super married.
Married for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah, and then she made Andrew Lloyd Webber forget how to write good musicals.
Oh, so it's all Sarah Brightman's fault.
Yes.
That's
jeez.
what we've discovered. Okay.
No, I think it's very much Andrew Lloyd Webber's fault, all on his own. I don't think he actually needed the help. He was
Yeah,
on his
true.
way.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was fun.
I mean,
should
really
we do the
good,
next
whatever.
one?
Yes, we absolutely should. So, I researched 1776.
1776.
That's not even.
I'm not throwing away my... No, I'm sorry. This is a different musical about the Founding Fathers.
This is a different musical about the Founding Fathers. So 1776 is a revival that opened on October 6th, 2022, closed on January 8th, 2023, after 105 performances and 21 previews. Mm-hmm. This revival was directed by Jeffrey L. Page and Diane Paulus, choreographed by Jeffrey L. Page.
Yep.
Associate director, Brian Areli Munoz, associate choreographer, Courtney Ross, and plenty more credits that I would encourage you to check out IBDB for. Mm-hmm. The last one that I want to highlight is musical supervisor David Chase, who's just we've talked about him several times on this podcast before as the music director for Tuck Everlasting. He was the driving musical force behind the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella
That's it.
revival, where he turned all these
sketches
of Rodgers and Hammerstein songs into frankly, one of the better R&H musicals that you can license these days.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Why are we talking about Rodgers and Hammerstein when we could be talking about 1776? Let's talk a little bit about the original production of 1776.
Yeah, I'm so curious because it's one of those shows that's sort of been orbiting me as I learn about musicals, but I've never actually really sat down to investigate it. I know that Mr. Feeney was in it.
Ooh.
Wasn't he in the original production? The same actor who played Mr. Feeney on Boy Meets World?
In the original production?
I'm like pretty sure.
Yep, he played John Adams.
Oh, fuck. Like, led the original production.
Yes.
Fuck me. There you go. So,
learn something new every day.
1776. So, original production is an enormous smash hit. We got Sherman Edwards, the composer, is the person who originates this. By all accounts, he was a songwriter for Elvis.
Ooh.
Whoa.
And one day he was sitting in the middle of a songwriting session.
No, with
and he
Elvis.
was like, not with with like other songwriters, not with Elvis.
No, come on, embellish.
So he was sitting there with Elvis himself,
eating a peanut butter and banana and bacon sandwich.
Apparently, so he's in this writing session, and he just in the middle of it stops, like, "Sorry, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to write pop music. I've got an idea for a musical," and walks out of the seat.
No,
and goes and starts to write a musical about the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Oh my God.
1776.
Okay, already I have an opinion. It is that I would rather watch that as a musical. Like the moment of, oh my God, I
hate this. I don't want
Elvis,
to do
I
this.
hate you. I need to go. You know what I mean? Like, or
absolutely,
whatever.
absolutely.
Like that to me, I'm like, that's entertaining.
I've always known 1776, similar to you. I'd listened to it before, and I've seen the movie, but I've known it as a joke, basically, as like what a stupid like American propaganda. Not only is it an American propaganda musical that really whitewashes is a term I'll use that'll be especially relevant later on. But it clouds over all sorts of problems in American history and the founding of the United States of America, while kind of paying even worse than just like skipping over them, kind of pays some tribute to them in an inaccurate way. Where, for example, it portrays the southern states as being unwilling to sign the Declaration of Independence without removing any clauses decrying or outlawing slavery.
Yes.
Whereas in real life, there was, like most of Congress, that's where their heads were at.
Oh,
like,
totally.
This was not a right versus left thing. People were way off track and totally backwards minded.
Absolutely.
Like, in general, not just on the political spectrum.
Yeah.
Many things like that. I don't want to say that it's like 1776 isn't a show without charm, but it's a dated show. Like when you listen to the music, and I did a re-listen of the Broadway cast a couple times this week leading up to this. There's some funny lyrics, there's some charming melodies. It's not like it's ineptly made, but man, it's dated.
What year? Sorry, was the first?
This is the mid '60s. So we're talking. Opening date is March 16th, 1969.
Oh
and runs
my
into
gosh!
the early 70s.
In my mind, it like wasn't that old.
Really? In my mind, it was older because this is the start of the rock revolution.
Yeah,
like Hair was running at this time,
which also is wild to me.
So
that there's a world where like those two
and
are
anti-Vietnam Hair are right there,
which is kind of amazing to think about politically.
Yeah, right. So I've always had 1776 as like a go-to joke for a corny musical.
Got it.
And that's always been where my head was at. So when they announced we're doing a revival of this in 2020 or so, I'm like, fucking who cares? Great. Then the pandemic happens.
You're like, really? We are rehashing this one?
So then the pandemic happens and everything shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come back, they say, all right, we've brought on another co-director and we're staging it with a new concept now where everyone in the cast are going to be, I want to make sure I get it right, are going to be women or non-binary folks, and the majority of them are going to be IBPOC folks as well.
Right.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that was accurate in how I described it. I think that's their conception.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And at this point, what this makes everyone say, and we're going to do this to highlight the fact that these voices were not considered in the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
Where have I heard that before?
Well, this is what I'm saying. Makes total sense. This sounds like a strategy very similar to the strategy used to great success in this is a little bit of lore. This is an obscure show. But it's called
No one's heard of it.
It's called Hamilton. It's by this up and coming composer named Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Well, and see, I don't think that's a strategy in Hamilton.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe strategy is the wrong word.
conscious casting decision.
Yes.
This feels like a strategy.
Right.
This
Rather
feels like
than-
marketing.
Rather than I meant strategy in the artistic sense. So maybe
Right,
a better
okay.
word would be an artistic concept.
Yes.
Better employed
Okay, fair enough.
In Hamilton. So whatever, that's the concept they're going in with. And the secondary concept is also we're going to rearrange the music. We're going to kind of like make it rockier.
Okay.
This was going to be my next question was, did they modify the book? Did they, what is different?
Yeah, was this like a surface level change where
Right.
we just threw some different bodies on
Totally.
stage?
This is very much a surface level change.
Cool.
Is the impression I get. It's hard to say because there's for a show that just closed. It was a limited run on Broadway. So the reason it closed. This is a co-pro between the Roundabout Theatre and the American Repertory Theatre Company.
Oh, yes.
So
Okay.
something very similar to the Canadian nonprofit regional system.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have no need to run a show forever.
Yep.
The money for producing comes from elsewhere. So they had a limited run on Broadway. Then they're going to be touring all over the place.
Great. Or is it?
Sorry.
I said great, or is it?
Or is it? Well, let's talk because, first of all, I hear that they're doing these rock arrangements. And I think of the 1776 that I know. Mm-hmm. I'm like, there is, this music is dated to its core.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not a diss, but that's a fact. It would take a lot more than writing out some parts for guitar, bass, and drums to turn this into a different style of music. Like, you would need to get in and, for the amount of work you're doing to actually make it an authentic rock score, you might as well just write a new musical.
Okay.
That said, I don't know because I have no friggin' idea what it sounds like.
Right.
Because everything I found, there was they did one Good Morning America, but that video's disappeared. All their sizzles are just have a backing track of a really generic orchestration that sounds just like the original orchestration. Nothing rock at all. I've got one video of them singing the Mama Hey Mama or whatever, which is a song, a nice song in 1776.
Okay.
With a cool vocal arrangement and it sounds bomb.
And John Adams sings it to George Washington.
So this is point one. Okay, that's very bizarre. And there's no plans, now that they've closed, there's no plans to make a cast album.
Okay.
That's also surprising.
Yeah.
So you said they're touring it, but they're not gonna
Right?
get anyone amped up about the tour. This is, to me, those are ways that you can
Yeah.
encourage people to get interested.
Speaking as two people who have both worked at a regional theater that was producing as at the time very unknown musical, and someone who just did a cast recording for an upcoming musical,
Doing a cast recording for a new musical right now, yeah.
that's how you get people
Yep.
hyped about a show they don't know that well. They can go
Absolutely.
on Spotify, they can stream the musical, they go into the theater already knowing the songs.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is a great marketing tool.
So maybe I'm reading too far into this, but I don't think I am because there was also a very outward controversy
Ooh.
that happened with this show. The performer's name is Sarah Porkalob, who plays Edward Rutledge,
Okay.
who's the representative from Virginia, I believe, and sings a song late in Act 2 in the musical about the slave trade.
Okay.
This is one of the show's
Okay.
attempts to address this. It, like I said, it's the politics of the song itself are fine, I guess, but it really plays pandering to the South were bad and the North were
Right,
good and all
right.
of this. And so she plays that role, and obviously by recasting and recontextualizing it, all of a sudden it takes on a different meaning. That's very cool. That's very awesome. So she gives an interview saying, in 1776, she sings this song, Molasses to Rum, which comments on the slave trade, takes on a different context with them singing it. They're a Filipino artist. And so they say in an interview that when we were all in the room together, there weren't any conversations about how we marry our queer identities with these characters, which is disappointing. That race was used as a binary, and that the black cast members were consulted about their relationship to this number and to the discussions of race in the show, but not necessarily that all IBPOC folks were.
Right.
Okay.
And that while the contract is fulfilling from a both social standpoint and a monetary standpoint, she finds herself giving about 75% of herself on stage.
Wow.
This was met with a lot of backlash, including a really rude response from one of the directors.
Oh, geez.
And it sparked a big debate about how much performers should be giving to the show, which is something, this is in this whole drama, because this was a big old thing, big old discourse around all of this. The thing that keyed into me, first of all, obviously the challenges of being an IBPOC performer in a show that is going up, and they've what seems to me like slapped this filter on it.
Yeah.
This woke washing veneer.
Right.
Like that fucking sucks. I'm sorry that they had a poor experience in a environment that maybe didn't feel totally safe, and absolutely good on them for speaking truth to power in that regard.
Yes.
What I want to speak to, because it's something that speaks to my experience and to you, to all of our experiences, is the idea that we as arts professionals should be giving everything to the show because we're lucky to have the job. Right.
And it's like their 75% is probably like reads as 110%. Do you know what I mean?
Well, absolutely.
So to speak in percentages is useful when you are a person who can acknowledge that, right? Like if I say, 75% is probably a beautiful performance from this artist, you know? So yeah.
And they go on to acknowledge as well. They're like, when I said that, I meant, they say this in response to the backlash.
Yeah.
75%, I meant like 75% of myself is in the show. 10% is sleep. 5% is eating.
Right. Okay, so they're not even talking about like I'm going out there and like 75% assing it.
Even if they are.
Yeah, even if they are.
Like 75% is plenty.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's still a lot of ass.
Like
yes.
Especially for whatever you define it as. Like it shouldn't be based on how much you're giving to it. It should be based on whether you're completing the job satisfactorily.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely.
So this is controversy number 2. Combine that, both of these things. One is a very bizarre amount of promotion. One is this very bizarre situation where a cast member spoke out about weird feelings in the room, and one of the directors immediately shot back hard.
Yeah, that's like
which is
so bad.
Really bad behavior. It's
and
not something
that's just not a great working environment.
No.
If an actor can't speak about discomfort they're having, without at least being heard out by their creative leaders.
And to have that all take place across the internet is really messy.
Yeah.
So combine both of those things with the fact that the reviews were bad.
Right.
This show is everyone is receiving exactly what we've been talking about. 1776 is a flawed show, and they haven't done any of the actual work to make it a not flawed show.
Right.
And frankly, the amount of work you would have to do to actually make this authentic, you've just wrote Hamilton. You know what I mean? Like, or something.
Right.
Like
just like start over, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Or maybe what a lot of people are saying, and I happen to agree with, you've got all these incredible artists and non-binary folks of color in the room. Write something new about their stories.
Yeah.
You can hire them all. Let's go.
Yeah.
So as far as why this revival of 1776 closed, it closed because it was scheduled to close.
Yeah.
As to whether it was a successful revival of this show, the impression I get is no, not at all, both based on the reviews, based on the lack of evidence that's available for me to draw my own conclusion, and based on messiness like that falling out online. Like, that's not where it starts. You know what I mean?
No.
So that's my take on 1776.
Wow.
Original musical was a best Tony winner, best musical winner at the Tonys. This revival will probably get a best revival nod out of respect, but I have to guess
you think
that's
so?
it.
You think it will?
What else is in the running this year? I don't think there's been enough revivals that it won't get the nom. Maybe it won't get the nom, though. That would be
Well,
interesting.
Stranger things have happened. Aaron
Right.
Tveit was the only nominee in the COVID year for
That's right.
Best Actor, wasn't he?
That's absolutely correct. That was last year, wasn't it?
And he didn't win, which is weird.
But he did win Best Nose on Broadway, though.
The special award that we made up.
That we just made up. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Now I want to see.
I should also mention, dear friend of the podcast, Raffi Rosenberg, went to see it. So we don't just have the word of critics, we have the
Yes.
words of a friend of ours who lives in New York and went to see it.
Yes.
I was so bored in Act 1, I checked my phone thinking 2 hours must have passed and it had been 30 minutes.
Oh, no.
Oh, jeez.
It was so obviously performative and stunt casting. I wish that money had gone into new shows about or by these women about their own stories.
Yep.
Women and non-binary folks.
Yes, women and non-binary folks. Thank you very much. It's a show that should never have been revived. There was nothing else to offer or say, and thinking that a show about founding fathers with a BIPOC cast sells because Hamilton sells is like saying the Backstreet Boys and the Beatles have the same audience because they're both bands with men.
Well, they do
Yes.
because I like them, but that's irrelevant.
That's so funny, but accurate,
But
right?
you wouldn't program the Backstreet Boys to try to cash in on a Beatles market.
Yes,
No.
I would.
Well,
You wouldn't lose money.
I could speak to the fact that I like Bo,
Well, yes. Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, that's what
no,
the
I get that.
The point here is not my amazing idea for a tour.
I don't think this is the last we will see of this revival of 1776. I can't wait to see what's in store next.
Yeah. I'm upset by
Yeah.
the harm
It is
of that.
It's an upsetting revival.
Yeah.
I don't think it was well thought out.
Yeah.
And it's just something that its core smells bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll keep an eye on what happens with the tour
Yeah.
and hope that maybe there's some important conversations going on behind the scenes.
I hope so too.
A debrief.
And I hope that
Yeah.
the artists who were in the Broadway cast, whether they go out on the tour or not, are able to translate that that cachet into cool projects that highlight their own voices.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you, Paul,
Thank
for
you.
that.
Very good.
Wow.
This has been my book report. Thank you very much.
Good job, Paul.
Thank you.
Gold star. Okay.
We got one more.
Ooh, one more.
All right.
All
So it's the ghost with the most.
Who?
It's showtime.
Don't you. don't.
Paul.
We're not saying
No,
it thrice.
Paul. Don't do it. Okay, so
To be careful how many times we say
we
it.
sure do.
Yeah.
So Beetlejuice.
That's one.
That's one. But it needs to be spoken 3 times in a row. Must be spoken unbroken.
Oh, you're right. You're right. That is the rule.
All right, so Beetlejuice has a bit of an interesting background. So it was originally started to get developed in 2016 and is based on the 1988 film of the same name, Beetlejuice, directed by Tim Burton. The production was
Great
produced
movie.
by
Fantastic movie.
Warner Brothers and directed by Alex Timbers.
Great.
Shiver me timbers.
Yeah, shiver me, Alex Timbers. Yeah, with music by Australian comedian Eddie Perfect, which is just
Oh.
what a fun name.
Love it.
Music and lyrics by Scott Brown, and Anthony King wrote the book. So yeah, it started getting developed in 2016. It had a pre-Broadway run in Washington in 2018.
And it was well received there?
I believe so. Like everything
That was the
I've-
impression I got.
I
yeah.
thought so
Yeah.
too.
From what I understand, it's a pretty divisive musical. Like
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
the buzz at the time being good, not great,
Yeah.
and it getting caught up in the, geez, I'll just make anything into a musical now
Yeah.
kind of rhetoric.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm
Thi-
sorry, did you take that from me? Because I
Yeah.
literally said that so
Literally,
many times. in
we
my
may
life.
have said it to each other.
Yeah.
Can you believe they're making Beetlejuice into a musical?
Well, like this was around the time when like every movie,
Yep.
if it was even a little bit popular, was getting an adaptation. We got Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
we got like
that's true.
Big Fish, American Psycho. Like all of
Yes.
these like movies were getting an adaptation. So
Yep.
I think we were like, really? Beetlejuice, the musical, the movie that has 2 musical numbers in it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
is getting
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
I-
This is what we
I-
do now.
Yeah.
And it's like that weird thing of like that Shrek faced where it's like, geez,
Yes.
the music in Shrek
Yeah.
is great. I can't wait for a musical.
And then
But you can't use any of that
No.
music.
No.
And the characters aren't going to sing friggin' Hallelujah or All Star or whatever,
because-
you know? They're-
Because none of the music in that film is diegetic at
Exactly.
all.
Yeah.
It's all a soundtrack.
That's it.
And it's great. It's great, like, music curation.
Yes.
But it's
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
translate into a stage musical. It's a different medium with music doing a different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the show had 27 previews in March 28th, 2019, opened April 25th, 2019, and closed on March 10th, 2020, before being revived in April 8th, 2022, and closed on January 8th, 2023.
Wow.
Do you know, did it close with the shutdown or just before the shutdown?
It closed with the shutdown. Like for those of us in Canada, that weekend of like March 10th,
Yep.
March 13th was like our D-Day for Canadian
Yeah,
theater.
March 13th is what I remember.
So I believe it closed with the Broadway shutdown,
Yeah.
and then came back with like the Broadway reopening in
Yep.
April 2022.
That makes
But before
sense.
it came back, it had posted that it wasn't.
Yes.
Yes,
And it posted, now we're done.
It was originally scheduled to close in June 2020 to make way for the Music Man revival at the Winter Garden Theatre, but it ended up closing with the rest of the pandemic in March 2020. And also, the woman that originated the role of Lydia Dietz, Sophia Ann Caruso, left the show in February 2020. And this was a bit of a weird thing where it was very abrupt.
Yeah.
And there was rumors about, why did she get fired? Why did she quit? The official word from producers was that she exercised her contractual out to pursue TV and film work.
Gotcha.
And she has received a whopping 1 credit on her IMDb since leaving the show.
She is the voice to me of that musical in a way.
Yes.
Did the cast recording?
Yeah.
She did the
in
cast
that-
recording. Yeah,
It's a nice
Sophia
cast
Ann
recording.
Caruso originated the role. She was part of the
She's an
pre-Broadway
absurd singer.
workshops.
Lydia,
Oh
Lydia
my
track's a hard
gosh.
track. They didn't write it easy.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then speaking of incredible performances, we have Alex Brightman,
Yes.
who originated the role
Yeah.
on Broadway. He was part of the 2018 workshops and uses this special thing called ventricular fold phonation, which allows him to do the signature gruff voice of Beetlejuice without totally frying his vocal cords.
That's so
It's
incredible.
wild.
Yeah, so that's the reason why he's able to do 8 shows a week of talking like this.
It's something that I don't understand.
It's
And
amazing.
I can't argue against it.
It's got to
'cause
be
the proof is in
tongue
the pudding. He did it.
placement, soft palate, which the Phantom knows all about. That was a stupid
He
joke.
actually had Michael Crawford
You would
backstage.
appreciate it if you would please lower your
Please
tongue.
Lower your tongue and lift your goddamn soft palate. Yeah. But it actually might be that agility, right?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
being able to because you're not sitting on your folds, but you're lift. It's something about the palate. I would guess.
It feels like it would be such a fine line to walk.
Oh God.
Man.
Wow.
But he's been nailing it for
He's
Yeah,
incredible.
absolutely.
years.
Great performer. He was great in School of Rock.
I was
as well.
gonna say
Yes,
School of Rock.
he was Dewey Finn in
Yeah.
School of Rock. And also in 35mm, which is...
Oh yes, I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that song segment.
Yeah.
So quirky.
That's right.
Yep. And he was also in Big Fish, another musical that we have covered.
Oh, sure. that
Wait,
makes sense.
who was he in that?
He was an ensemble, so he was
Okay.
also understudy to Will Bloom.
That makes sense.
Yep,
that
absolutely
tracks.
makes sense.
And he was also in Matilda the musical as I believe her dad, I want to say.
Oh,
Michael Wormwood.
Yeah.
Oh no,
That's the brother.
that's the brother. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know the story of Beetlejuice, it follows the rough sketch of the film, but with a couple of different changes here and there. The biggest being that so in the movie, Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice is on screen for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And shows up at the 30-minute mark. Whereas in the musical, it's no, we know that you're here
Yes.
for Beetlejuice.
He's the main character.
He's the main
Yeah.
character. And it does more of what the cartoon did in the early 90s, where it's
'Cause him and Lydia are just buds.
yeah, it's
right?
it's the Lydia and Beetlejuice show.
Got
and
it.
everybody else is kind of like the Maitlands, who were played by Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis in the movie, are more pushed to the background a little bit.
Okay.
They take out anything romantic with Beetlejuice and Lydia, right?
They still try to get married.
Because that's the big thing in the movie is oh, nope, that's really creepy. That's
yeah,
really weird.
having Michael Keaton hit on a teenage Winona Ryder is in universe, it's really creepy.
And that's it. That's what it's supposed to be, right? It's supposed to. You're not supposed to. Because Beetlejuice is the
Yes.
villain of the movie.
Yes,
That's
he is.
it.
Yeah.
And he still is here, but but also Bro's he's so fun.
Yeah.
Right.
totally.
Yeah, so it basically follows the plot of the movie where Barbara and Adam Maitland die very suddenly, and they are still haunting / living in their old house. Their old house is moved into by a human living family. Mm-hmm. The daughter, Lydia, has recently lost her mom, and her dad is hooking up with this crazy artist lady named Delia. Mm-hmm. She doesn't like that. She wants to move, and then while she is trying to kill herself to be reunited with her
right.
mom,
Yep.
Beetlejuice shows up and is like, "Hey, what if we just start haunting the house instead, or like what if we join up?
Yeah.
And then wacky hijinks ensue in Act 2 as they try to do that. There's a couple differences, not just with the focus of the show, but also how the Maitlands die is different, because in the movie they drive their car off a bridge, and in this they just fall through the floorboards in their house. In the tour they get electrocuted.
That sounds like Broadway.
That's fine. That's you can either try to do a car crash and it's not very good, or you can do something that actually looks good on stage.
Yes.
Like, no shade there. Yeah.
And like there's other things like Lydia's dead mom is a way bigger focal point, where like she's like, I want to be reunited with my mom. I want to like summon my mom.
Yeah.
And in the movie it's just like, my mom's dead, womp womp.
Right.
It basically follows the plot of the film. My personal favorite thing, though, as I was reading this plot synopsis on Wikipedia, was so we've gone through the entire plot of the movie, and then this sentence: Beetlejuice then crashes through the wall riding a sandworm. Which each do you know? We haven't mentioned the sandworm up until that point.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, sandworm.
And that's in the original movie. Gina Davis crashes through on
Yes.
a soundworm and eats Beetlejuice.
Yes.
And that's how the movie ends.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Wow.
Because I know they had like a big sandworm puppet, right?
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Which, actually, so shortly before the show closed on January 8th, during a Christmas Eve performance, Alex Brightman slammed into the giant sandworm backstage at a full sprint and had a concussion.
Yeah, I believe it.
So he was at risk of not continuing the show and
That's
needing to close
right.
it because he was feeling really nauseous, really
Yep.
achy, because he had a head injury. Being around the lights
Oh my
was
gosh.
no good.
Oh, that's scary.
So his understudies were brought in to kind of fill the gaps, but then he was able to finish the show. He closed it out on January. It was really cute, actually. Him and the current Lydia held up little signs that said, "Hey guys, we love you," to the audience. It was
That's
really
sweet.
adorable. It was so great. So I'm happy he was able to finish out the run.
And then they used the worm in Dune.
Yes, that's
actually,
correct.
they had it
was
on
rented
loan.
to
They rented it when it was closed during the pandemic. They rented the worm out to
That's the way they were
make
able to
Dune.
reopen.
Yes.
They
And
got the
then-
money they got from the rental.
And now they had to
Yes.
close so that they could use the worm again.
For Dune 2!
In Dune 2.
Guys, I'm sorry, we've got to close. They need to start filming. They start filming tomorrow. We've got to go.
Wow.
The music's nice.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I
There's a
really
lot of
like the
fun.
music. Like,
Yeah.
the whole Being Dead thing, bop. Say my name, bop.
Bop.
Yeah.
That beautiful sound, bop.
Yeah.
Deo, parentheses, the Banana Boat
Yeah.
song. Not written for this show, but still a bop.
Still a bop.
Dead Mom.
Meh.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's a good
Okay,
song.
and here's why I
Yeah.
feel meh is because I've heard everyone do it now.
Yeah, it's a hot thing right now.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yep.
Next.
It
Because
just-
it cycles through, right? Like everyone did that song from Mean Girls for a while. And
Everyone
then-
did Pulled.
Yeah, everyone did pull. It's like,
All the way back to like Popular and Defying Gravity.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like, no
wait,
shade.
what are you saying? They have to come out of my book now?
No,
I'm
they
just
can go
kidding.
back in. They're back.
Oh my gosh, we're back!
Popular
Oh,
especially.
thank
I
goodness.
love to hear a Popular nowadays.
Right?
Absolutely.
And like,
Okay.
no shade to anyone that does use this in their book.
No,
I'm sure
no.
you're doing a
No,
great job.
totally.
But it activates my get off my lawn instinct
Right.
about like this aggressively emo teenage girl, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
Let's dial it back a little
Yeah.
bit there.
I like it. I think it's,
No,
a
you
nice
can
song,
like it.
and
I don't
when
judge
people
you
sing
for
it.
that. I don't judge. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't judge. So, okay, can we... I'm curious then about... Because it was resurrected,
Yes.
what was the reasoning other than they need the worm prop for Dune? But what was the reasoning, do we think, behind the closing? Were they not making money?
Well, there's a few reasons. So critical reception is really mixed.
Yes.
Dear friend of the podcast, Ben Brantley
Oh, he
writes,
probably didn't like
Oh,
it.
yeah.
invisibility is definitely not among this show's problems. Overcompensating from the fear that it might lose an audience with a limited attention span is.
Right.
So it features a jaw-droppingly well-appointed gothic funhouse set by David Corns, replete with spooky surprises. The show is so overstuffed with gags,
Right.
one-liners, and visual diversions that you shut down from sensory overload.
It's
So-
interesting because to me that's also the movie
Yeah.
in a
Yeah,
good way.
Like,
that's what's charming.
is that a bug or a feature?
right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
also so much of contemporary Broadway
True.
Yeah.
in my mind. Like we
Yeah.
talk about the like Broadway jokes that start to
Oh,
come
yes.
in. You know what I mean? And when you watch clips from Beetlejuice, that's all they are. They're just
Yeah, Alex Brightman
big
is
Broadway
like
jokes.
breaking the fourth wall left, right, and
Yeah.
center in
Yeah.
the whole Being Dead thing,
Yeah.
making a ton of Broadway jokes.
Right.
So, like, the vibe that I get is that this show was a huge fan favorite, huge fan success. People fell in love with the soundtrack over Spotify and things like that. but that didn't necessarily translate to ticket sales.
Right.
Or at least the kind of ticket sales you need now on Broadway to keep
stay afloat.
To keep the lights
Yeah,
on.
totally.
Because, like, who has money that's coming to the shows? It's older people, right?
Yes.
And unless they have, like, a teen or a young adult in their life to be like, let's go see this, like, fun and silly thing.
I know you've
know?
been listening to the soundtrack for like the last 6 months in
Yeah.
your bedroom. But I think it also is like because it has such a young fan base that also leads to more people watching like bootlegs than going to go see the show in person.
Yes.
Well, wasn't it revived because it blew up on TikTok?
It blew up on TikTok. Oh, and it is also touring as of December.
Okay.
Oh, great, even better.
That's
So,
good.
so I
That'll be
think
good
it'll
for
probably
that.
find a very happy second life through touring because
A bunch of people will see it, yeah.
and like even just for myself, I don't know if I want to go see it, but I love the designs.
Yeah, I would consider seeing it,
I'd go see it if it was here.
Yeah.
I think this show
I
would
might
be
not go
so
to New
much
York
fun
to
to
see
design.
it, but I would.
Yeah.
If it comes here, I would
if it was in
absolutely
the city,
go
I'd
see
go
it.
see it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's put that out into the universe.
Yeah.
Broadway across Canada, do you mind just
I'd
picking
really
up your
appreciate it.
friend Beetlejuice and...
Did it get any Tony attention?
So Alex Brightman was nominated for Best Actor.
Okay.
Very well deserved. He did not win, but he was nominated. He was also nominated for Best Musical, Best Book, Best Original Score, Best Scenic Design, Best Costume Design, a whole bunch of
Oh,
design.
wow, good for them.
It didn't win anything at
Yeah.
the Tonys. It won like some smaller awards like Outer Critics Circle,
Right.
Drama League, etc., but nothing at the Tonys.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And sorry, what year was that?
So this was the 2019.
2019. Okay, what else was going on that year?
Tootsie won Best Book.
Oh, God.
Jesus Christ.
So that's fun.
The year that Hades Town took it.
Oh, good.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, which makes
Thank
total
God
sense.
That
Tootsie
makes
did not
sense.
take it.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
This is the year with the cool Oklahoma revival.
Oh, that's
Taking
right.
Best Revival.
Also,
Yes.
Santino Fontana took Best Actor for his role in Tootsie from Alex Brightman.
That's right. And that was a big thing, too.
Yeah,
People
that
were
is
a
like,
big
what
thing.
the even heck?
Yeah, going up against Ain't Too Proud, The Prom, and Oklahoma.
Right. That was the prom year.
Yeah, Hades Town took a lot of these awards.
This is
Rightfully
Hades Town's
so.
year and Oklahoma's year.
The Cher Show took
Yep.
Best Costume Design.
yeah.
Damn right they
Oh,
did.
my God. Interesting.
I kind of wanted to do this episode in response to some of the think pieces you see popping up about like, is Broadway done? Like we had this
Yeah.
initial boom when we came back and now everything's closing. To be able to examine these three shows and first of all, examine how different they are and the very different reasons.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
very different lives all of them had and the very different reasons they've closed. It's of the three, none of them seem like they closed too early.
I also think that something I was thinking about a
Like,
lot
right?
in prep for this podcast was like working mostly at the regional level.
Yeah.
It still takes some getting used to on this podcast that 100 performances can be a failure.
Sure.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like, because you look at like the runs of a lot of these shows, like Phantom, 30 years, 76, three,
Yep.
one performance and two revivals.
Yeah, and that initial performance was like years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Beetlejuice like went on for 688 performances.
Yeah, like that's massive.
How is that anything other than a smash?
And he's getting a tour. Like, I don't.
But no, I agree completely. The only thing that's upsetting when you say 100 performances and it's a failure is the fact that usually a show that closes after that amount of time, there's a reason that
Yeah.
it is not finding its legs.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it less tragic because people are still out of work, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the thing that's
I have
so
one more thing to
hard.
say about Beetlejuice,
Yeah.
just to go back for a second.
Please do.
So here is how I knew the show was in trouble.
Okay.
So Paul and I watched the YouTube channel The Try Guys.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm familiar.
Love 'em. Very funny. Funny, good, chill, like supper time TV.
So for those of you who don't know, so The Try Guys, their whole conceit is that they do things that they haven't done before. They go try things, and it's hilarious.
Like
wacky.
cheating on their wives.
Yeah, one of them tried that. Would recommend
the
it.
newest.
That's
That's
the
the
newest thing
latest
it's
Would
try,
recommend
guys.
it. But so for one episode, they auditioned for Beetlejuice, and the whole thing was that whichever one of them did the best was going to get to have a small walk-on role in Beetlejuice.
During the performance that night.
And so I was like, okay,
Great.
this is really
Cute.
cool.
Yeah.
But what does it say about the state the show is in?
Right.
That this is a promotional opportunity they're embracing.
They put a fair amount of staff into doing this. Like, they put them through a full audition process.
Yeah, they had the
dance captain,
choreo.
brought in the associate MD.
That's expensive.
Yeah,
Alex Brightman was there, running lines with them.
So, like, they spent some money to make this video, which is great. And it was a good video, and it's very fun.
It's very fun. It's very cute, and like you can see, like,
but it's not something you shrug off.
And like Keith Happersberger is one of the Try Guys. He won. He got to go walk on stage, and he was beaming with pride, super happy. Good for him.
Yeah.
But it's like
the video really does make the whole Beetlejuice team and like working environment seem really positive.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
But it struck me that I was like, this is a show that understands its audience and knows that this is a great promotional opportunity.
Yes.
But could you imagine having a fan campaign for a walk-on role in something like Phantom?
Yeah,
or something like Company, something with a bit more. It just there was something about it where I was like, this is really cool, but feels a little dinner theater-y.
Remember what? Okay, so further to that, because I think that is a really great observation to be like, oh, whoa, they did this all to sort of like drum up maybe another wave of support for the show. Remember Search for Elle Woods? Like, this is what I'm saying, where it's like, it didn't actually last that much longer on Broadway after that show, did it not? Like, there was like another surge.
And that's always I guess in Canada we did it a bit different. We did Over the Rainbow before the show opened.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But like Wizard of Oz at Mirvish was a hit, but it was not a mainstay. It was not, did not crush.
No, exactly. So I don't know. There's more of that than I've realized.
Yeah.
They did that for Grease as well, didn't they? For a Grease revival?
Yes, they did.
Totally.
So I'm going to keep my eye on stuff like that.
Yeah. Like, I don't think it's a death knell, but it is just, it's just interesting that that's a promotional avenue that we're seeing pop up every now and again.
Is it possible that the Beetlejuice team is actually really smart and is recognizing that that's a better place to spend their promo budget than Good Morning America appearances or whatever?
It was a smart business decision.
Yes.
But it's also the kind of thing where I'm like, okay, so you were willing to invest the resources to risk having a complete Broadway nobody with no prior experience come on stage and work with you. Yeah. That's something you invested a not insignificant amount of resources into making happen.
Yeah. That's so true.
Like, you don't do something like that if you don't think it's going to be worth the risk.
Yep. I think I agree completely. I can see exactly how they got there, especially where they're like Beetlejuice. We had this big TikTok boost that brought the show back. Yeah. So clearly this is the way our audience is engaging with this.
Yeah.
So why would you bother going on frickin' Good Morning America?
Yeah.
Spend that money on a hugely popular YouTube channel and being on that.
I just like the idea of like a bunch of like old white men in suits in the Warner Brothers like room being like, what are the youth like? The Try Guys.
Refusing to even call a youth to be like, we don't want that.
Line go down, make line go up. Charts.
These 5 old white dudes who are perplexed, who don't understand Beetlejuice or how it got popular at all. But are like, this is making money and we need to keep it making money.
Yeah. Oh,
what's on TikTok?
What is it? TikTok.
Google, what do teens like?
Oh, jeez.
There really is no connective tissue between these 3 shows closing.
I super love that, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of wonderful.
My hope would be that the conclusion we can draw is not that we're in any kind of crisis of Broadway closing right now. Which, like I said, some think pieces are pulling that bell. Mm-hmm. And instead, I would say it's a sign that we're in a really healthy theater environment.
Yeah.
And like, I would really love it if we had like a healthy amount of turnover on Broadway.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think it would be really cool if we had this steady stream of new voices, new creations getting put on the stage. Yeah. Like, maybe stick around a little while so I can see them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a bad thing.
No.
And stick around long enough to like make some real money. Like, shows make money, artists should make money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like make your get enough money to break even, pay everybody. I don't want anyone like going into bankruptcy.
Totally.
But like, I don't know. I just think it would be really cool if we had just like a more steady stream of new works getting produced.
Yeah.
Completely.
Also, it's definitely not the worst month for closures that has ever happened.
No,
so it's
not,
interesting that they like are sounding the alarm, saying, "Oh, 11 closures this month," but I think the record's like 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So until we get there,
let's all chill out.
Yeah.
And once again, the things that closed are like the 3 things that we discussed. The longest running show, which it had to close sometime.
Yeah. Exactly.
A show that had already posted closing is also a weirdo show with a lot of controversy. Mm-hmm. And a show that was already on its victory lap.
Totally.
victory lap that got brought back after the pandemic and also is going out kind of beloved and gets to still have this great second life with touring and a soundtrack. And I certainly have never watched them, but slime tutorials...
Oh, yeah.
Don't watch them, though. They're definitely not on YouTube if you search Bug Juice slime tutorial.
Bug Juice
Don't do that. That would be bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's as good of a place as any, I think, to maybe start to wrap up this episode, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Join us next time for a very special episode of Monkeys. You can join us live. You can join us while we record the episode.
We're going to have to figure out how to do this better before we bring this to an audience.
Like to stay a little more focused.
Frantically cutting all of our stuff down.
Just, it's a lot of like watching Paul Google things and Paul going to the bathroom and other things that Jill does. I don't know. I can't think of any examples right now.
I wait for Paul.
We try to make this episode an hour long?
Yeah.
We're coming up on hour 2 of recording,
Woo-hoo.
everyone.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll try to be more concise for the live episode.
Or maybe we'll get a 2.5 hour episode and everyone will love it.
And everyone will love it and have a drink.
Especially Daphne.
Enjoy.
Yeah. But the beauty of a live episode is that all of your stupid jokes just stay in. Everyone else has to listen to them now.
Join us for that at the Crescent Arts Centre in Osborne Village in Winnipeg on
February 25th at 9:30 p.m.
It's Monkeys and Playbills Nights.
Yeah. You can come see the Village Conservatory's show Inhibition Exhibition first, and then come stick around and see an after party with Monkeys and Playbills. We're going to be talking about a very special show, about a very special person,
and
a very special relationship.
Sorry, I cannot with this. I cannot.
He's a man who lives in New York. Mm-hmm. And he takes pictures for the local newspaper.
Stop. This all needs to be cut out. That's too much.
No, Paul, I've been posting very cryptic hints on Instagram.
I know.
I was trying to do a similar thing to what Jill did with Phantom.
Oh.
And it has like a mysterious illness.
You can't. I am so excited to finally explore
Has some
this
really
show.
colorful friends.
Yeah. I'm really excited to finally explore. It's probably the most demanded show that people have asked us to cover. And we're going to do it live, so you better be there.
We'll also be back before then. Come hang out with us. Admission is pay what you choose. It could be nothing. It could be $20. All of it goes towards the Village Conservatory, who let us do this podcast.
For Monkeys and Playbills, I'm Paul DeGurse.
I'm Jillian Willems.
And I'm the Phantom.
Did you just disappear backwards through a chair?
Smoke.
I do love that trick.
Sing for me. Yeah, that trick's so good.
It is really good.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
All right. Thank you and good night.
Hi everyone, this is producer Daphne speaking. Thank you all so much for listening to Monkeys and Playbills, the show where we take a look at Broadway musicals that had 100 performances or fewer before closing. To learn more about the show, you can follow us on Instagram at monkeysandplaybillspod or email us at monkeysandplaybillspod@gmail.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/monkeysandplaybills. Monkeys and Playbills is proud to be a Village Conservatory for Music Theater podcast. Original music for the show is provided by Paul DeGurse, and the show is produced and edited by Daphne Finlayson. We wanted to give a special thank you to the Canada Council for the Arts for supporting this season of Monkeys and Playbills. We also want to thank our producing partners, the Crescent Arts Centre, for their support. To learn more about the different podcasts in the Village Conservatory family, visit villageconservatory.com or look up the Village Conservatory channel in Apple Podcasts. To learn more about the live recording of Monkeys and Playbills happening Saturday, February 25th, 2023, visit the link in our description or villageconservatory.com.